Okay, so I took the opportunity a couple days ago, while I was waiting on parts to finish up my electronics cabinet, to install the Leeson 3-phase motor, and I shot some video on that, so let's take a look at that. Well, okay, so now we're going to start on the 3-phase motor VFD replacement. What I want to do is take this cover off so that I can access the motor contactor that's in here, because we're going to relocate that contactor into our enclosure. So we're going to just get in here and remove all this, because we're not going to need it anymore. So there's a little tab at the bottom, and you just put your screwdriver in there and lift down, and then the bottom should release. Well, there we go. And then it'll just pop out. Here's this little tab, and you just put your screwdriver on the bottom there and pull down, and then you can get the contactor out. It's just a Siemens motor contactor. There's a coil in here, pulls in and supplies power across those contacts. Okay, so it was on a DIN rail in the back here. So I'm just going to take all these wires loose. Make sure you take plenty of photos if you're not sure how to wire this up or what have you. And you can compare it to the manual. Okay, so here's the contactor, and if you look right here, this is the coil for to pull the contactor in, and this is a 110 volt coil. It's labeled, this is a A2 and A1 right here. So it's on a nice dim rail, so we'll just go ahead and we'll mount this into our enclosure. And we won't have anything but this will just be a junction box pass through for. So that's pretty much it. The box is empty. So now the trick is accessing those two bolts right there. Now when I had this off, it would have been real easy to get to that. So we'll see see how easy it's going to be now. Okay, getting these bolts loose is quite a problem. You can't really get a ratchet in there, and the wrench, you just don't really have much room to maneuver. So I suggest, if you can find, if you own a 14mm ratcheting boxed in wrench, you might be able to get that on there. So I'm going to fuss with this and see if I can get these loose. Okay, just to make life easier, I'm going to go ahead and just take this whole mounting plate off right here and this cover, so we can get to it, the motor, a little bit easier. I think that's just the easiest thing to do. Alright, you can see what I'm fussing and fighting with. These bolts right here, they're not very easy to get to. You can get on them, and you can get these front two loose, but the back two, there's really no room to maneuver. I might end up just taking this box off right here. Okay, so you can see I've got the motor off, and it's a trick. Luckily, there's studs in here that you can get an Allen wrench in. This is a 4mm, and I was able to actually get the Allen wrench in there and turn it with a pair of channel locks to break it loose. Then I was able to unscrew the nut. If you have a set of T-handles, that'd be better. Or you can try to get your wrench on the nut sideways and break it loose that way. Once you break it loose, it didn't seem to be much. Once I broke it loose, it didn't seem to be much trouble. Now it's just a matter of trying to get the pulley off. Five millimeter. Didn't think you were just going to pop right off, did I? Okay. Well, fortunately for me, I don't know if you can see this, but it looks like this pulley was beat on here with a steel punch or something. So, I don't think it's just going to pop right off. You can see right there the indentation right there. It's pretty good. So I'm going to have to get a puller to get this off. So unfortunately you can tell somebody beat this onto the shaft. Inside it's boogered up pretty good, so I'm having to use a puller to get this off. And luckily it's not that big a deal, it's coming right off, but more turns really. It was almost all the way off. And it looks like this is all one part. I thought it was maybe two pieces, but it looks like it's all one part. But you can see how it's kind of boogered up, so let's hope that it goes right on. Let's see if it'll slide on. Alright, it's going to slide on no problem with the out the keyway. And definitely got to get that keyway down. So let me work on that a little bit and see if I can get that keyway fitted, and we'll be back. Okay, with a lot of effort and sanding, I finally got this to slide on my shaft without any trouble. It was really tight, and it was really tight on the original motor, and you could tell that they banged it to, hammered it to get it on, and I can feel a raspiness in these bearings. And hammering a pulley onto a shaft is not ever any good for bearings, so I'm sure that those bearings will probably fail eventually, sooner than later. There was also this little washer on there. I think it was meant to be a spacer, because to pull the pulley out far enough. Little trick I want to show you. What I did was I just took a steel shaft and wrapped it with some sandpaper, and then stuck it through the hole like so, and then pressed down on each side and kind of rolled it back and forth on a table a lot to sand the inside, because you can get in there with your hand, but you can't really get the center, and that's really where it was hanging up for me. So just a tip, with the shaft on and everything, we'll check and make sure the pulley lines up. So far it's looking pretty good, and now make sure the keyway's in there. You're going to tap on it with a rubber hammer or a mallet, This is a dead blow mallet. Okay, a little tight on the keyway. Let me get that corrected and then we'll get it slid on there. Okay, so I got the pulley on, and let me see if I can show you. Oh, it's very, very close to being lined up on both sides, so I'm pretty happy with that. It's not even a 1/16 of an inch on the inside. I mean, excuse me, not even, but maybe a 32nd on the inside. And about a 1/16 or so on the outside. Looks really good. I'm pretty happy with that. So now it's just a matter of putting the little retaining screw back in, and we're mounting. That's a 6mm Allen screw in here. The G0702 doesn't have this belt at all. Probably because it's not needed. So I'm not going to install it back, and I'll probably take that pulley off. I don't think it's needed. If I find that it is needed, that's not a big deal to just pop this belt back off and put it on. I think it's not a big deal. There we go. Ooh, that's tight. Alright, so we got the belt on. And so now it's just a matter of wiring it up. Okay, well, as you can see, we've got our Leeson IEC metric motor installed and got it wired up. This is just some, this is actually some 10-4. The motor specs calls for, well, actually the VFD specs calls for 14 gauge minimum. I was going to go with 12 gauge, but when I went to the home center, all they had was some 10 gauge. So, not a big deal. This is going to go connect to the back of our control panel box. Got our black, red, white, and our ground. Now the ground screws for this motor are located right here, and I'm not sure how you're supposed to hook to that. So I just hooked to, so I just mounted right here to the box. Same difference. Yeah, I'm not sure why they did that. Now these connectors right here, these plastic cable connectors, I just took from here. They give you 3, and since we're not using them anymore, I just took one of those. So it's pretty easy to wire up. This is a low voltage 230 volts. This is terminal 4, 5, and 6 tied together with these bus bars. And then you have 1 and 7, 2 and 8, and 3 and 9 tied together. And then this is terminal 1, 2, and 3. And this, like I said, this will go down to the side here and hook into our control panel box. And now that we have that installed, it's time to make the connections to the motor, to our aviation plugs. And so I'm basically just going to make those connections just the same as you saw me solder all the other connections. One thing I want to point out is make sure you get a meter and check for continuity and make sure that your pins are lining up with your box. It's a little bit more difficult now that it's separated, so just make sure you do that. There are pin numbers here. You can write those down, what color you put on what pin number, and then just match them up. Alright, so I'm going to get all this soldered up. Okay, so we've got our Leeson 3-phase motor wired in. Got everything connected. Do yourself a favor. Ohm each wire from here to disconnect it from your VFD. Have it plugged into the Canon plug and check each color from red to red on both ends. Make sure that none of your wires, none of your phases are crossed and you don't have any short anywhere. And just double check each one of your connections. And after you do that, then it's time to start it. We've got our panel mounted, as you can see. When we get done, it'll just close up. I'll have some kind of magnetic. Don't know if you can see. I don't have any of my switches connected at the moment, so we're going to I'm just manually checking everything. In order for me to put power on everything, my contacts have to pull in, so I'm going to force them in. My fan comes on. I have my green light on my power supply here. Inside down on the 36 volt I have a green light, and on my C10 board I have a red light, so I know everything's powered up. There's a quick start guide for the VFD. I'm following that. It first says to verify all your wiring, as I mentioned before, and then it says this should be set on 5 Hertz, and it says just to hit run stop. Make sure that your spindle is spinning, and as you can see, ours is spinning in the correct direction, very slowly. And then it says stop it after you verify the direction, and then it says to change the Hertz from 5 to 50 or 60. So I found that if you go down, the top is 60, so if you just go down from 5, arrow down from 5, you can get to 60 quicker. And hit run and start again. As you can see, it's pretty fast. I accidentally let go of the motor starter, but I'm going to bring it back up for you to speed. Bring it back up for you to speed, and you can see it decelerates on its own. So we're going to start it at 60 Hertz. Full speed right now, and then we're going to stop it. And it gradually decelerates. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. We slung a little oil out. I'll have to clean that, but that's it. Hey, that's great. Pretty satisfied with everything so far. The electronics cabinet. It's going to be nice right here, mounted to the side. And as you can see, so stay tuned for the next video. All the plugs coming out of the back, they're just going to kind of wrap around. Have a great day.